So, how would you describe what you do online and why do you do it?
So, a couple of years back, I was working in the software industry, and life was, pretty much on the track of what I had planned. And in 2015, something happened which changed the entire course of my life. So, I resigned from my corporate job in 2015, and I basically went on a path of self-discovery. I just wanted the answer. Why am I here, and what exactly am I doing? What exactly am I looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And in that journey, what I discovered was a peace which I was longing for since a very long time. And that started the whole spiritual journey because in the usual 9 to 5, it was, just I was stuck in a rut. So it was like, yes, the life was completely on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Go to office in the morning and then come back in the evening, and it was just the usual, and had very little time to spend with family, with wife and kids. But then something changed, and I experienced a peace, a sense of peace, and that changed the entire course of my life. And I got into this, and ever since I've been just spreading
Mm.
the message of peace. That's it.
So, can you describe what happened exactly? What were the circumstances? Like, what was the situation?
Yeah. So in 2014, my dad passed away, and in 2000, I worked for about 1 year after that, and then at some point it just struck me that is this the only thing that is there to life, or is there something more?
Mm-hmm.
And one day, just out of the blue, I was in my courtyard, just walking in my courtyard, and very disappointed. Early morning time it was, and very disappointed that I don't have a job, and I had started a business that was not doing well. It was, failing completely.
Yep.
And I felt a sense of peace where everything just vanished for that time period. And I saw, and this, the whole, this localized energy, I could not find it anywhere. So I looked at the sun, and just tears started coming out of my eyes. And there was an explosion inside, a very intense feeling. And that once that feeling subsided, there was a sense of peace, a sense of calm. And that was something, that experience was something very new to me, because I had never experienced things like that before. Now everything was very new, very novel, and there was clarity, and the mind was absolutely silent. And that was the journey of my spiritual seeking. That's when I actually became a seeker, because now I wanted to know what had just happened. And that's where I started reading a little bit about Advaita and the old text. But then I still couldn't find any answer. So it was like 4 years, 4.5 years I spent in literally in isolation in a small room, which is on top of this house. And I did not do anything over there. I was not reading books. I was just there sitting and watching my mind. So I used to walk sometimes, but I was completely cut off with the outside world. And then at some point, the entire seeking dropped away. The whole idea of seeking something, and the whole idea of attaining a permanent state, that disappeared. And that was the most peaceful thing I had ever experienced. And then I came across teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti and Ramesh Balsekar. And Ramesh Balsekar in particular, every word he said was was my experience, was my living experience. And I was actually quite surprised when I saw that. So when he said that you are not the doer, it just went inside me like a current. It just destroyed the whole thing like a current. And I remember I was walking on my terrace and I was so ecstatic that I was running from one end to the other end. I just wanted to grab hold of someone and tell them, oh, I'm not the doer. Thank God there wasn't any one over there. But that realization changed the course of my life, because then the greatest change that I saw was in terms of my relationship with people, especially my children and my mom, my friends, because earlier the relationship was very different. Now that I knew that I'm not the doer of my actions, I also knew that even they are not the doer of their actions. So when nobody is the doer, it is clear that it is the same consciousness that is operating through each and every one. Mm-hmm. And when that realization happens, all there can be is peace.
Mm. Yeah.
So I mean, that was the transformation, and that's when I started talking about the teaching and the message.
Is that your main message, that we are not the doer, and in that is peace?
Yes. That is the actually. It's a very. It sounds very simple, but there is lots to it, because if we are not the doer, then how are the things happening? That question also comes about, and apparently there is actually no convincing answer for that. We can only speculate, but things seem to be happening, and we are here and we are interacting. That is also happening, but it is not happening to a person. The sense of personal identification, when that dissolves, it is seen that things are just happening. So Ramesh Balsekar would say that his favorite quote was that events happen, deeds are done, and even consequences happen, but there's no individual doer thereof. Mm-hmm. And that was the core message that brought peace. So if no one is the doer, then there is only one reality that is the source and substance of everything. And it is only mind which creates the subject-object split. So once the mind is still, that reality shines through like a light. And that is when one becomes the light. Mm. So it is not understood as an object. It is not seen as an experience. It is just the feeling of being. Mm-hmm. And that is what I experienced.
Become the light. That's good. How would you describe to somebody that has no clue what you were talking about, why that brings peace? Why is this sense of no self, no doer, a sense of peace? How could you get that across?
So, because the thing is that our whole conditioning is that we have been doing things since the very beginning, right? And when this understanding comes about that I'm not the doer of my actions, the actions happen, then there is no baggage per se. The story of the past, the baggage of the past drops down, because then there is no entity here to sustain that baggage. And also it creates the anticipate. It also destroys the anticipation of the future, because our experience is that our mind drifts either into an imaginary future or it drifts to a dead past. And the reality is here and now. So the message that there is no doer, if it is understood in principle, in totality, this whole story, this whole baggage, it all drops down. So what remains is the peace. Mm-hmm. And that peace is reflected in daily living as spontaneous living. What that means is that I live spontaneously without the thinking mind, the overthinking mind that is connected to the outcome, that is always attached to an outcome, that only thinks in terms of right and wrong, good and bad, moral, immoral, virtuous and vice, I drop that mind, and only the working mind continues, and the highest creativity flows through it. So if I'm an artist, I create my art without worrying about the fact that whether people will like my art or not, right? Or if if I do any other work, even the basic simplest work, I just I just get engaged and use my working mind. There is no thinking mind. So by nature is peace.
Yeah.
And peace is my only message. My message is not of enlightenment or any permanent state that one can achieve through effort or hard work. My message is simply one of peace, because that is what I have experienced and that is what I communicate.
Mm-hmm. Wow, well said. Yeah. So it's almost like living in a way of no expectations. Like you're not trying to get anything out of life anymore, right? And there's nothing really happening to you or anything that has happened to you. It's like you said, it's spontaneous creation. Like you're just kind of, you're here and it's like you are the happening in a way. Like you are the current and you are the flow, and
Yes.
there's going to be different phenomena and different scenes that pop up, but whatever it is, it's like, it's just like this, it's just coming and going. It's just this happening. It's this, it's like you escape a sense of polarity in a way, and there is no,
Yes.
it's just like this one flow, right? And then in that one flow is peace. And I think I want to touch on this. Like you said, you negate like the expectation of the future, I think you said, or something like that, like something about the future, right? You said there's no expectation of how you want the future to go. It's kind of just whatever happens. Well, I think the biggest thing that one can get from that point of view is looking at our inevitable demise a little bit differently, right? Because I think we all have that in the back of our heads. So when one sees our death a little bit differently from this point of view, then that is the biggest negation of suffering in my mind, is when one can see that nothing is happening to anybody here and nobody dies. That's the biggest one. I think I see that. I think it's locked away in all of our back of our heads as a human being in the mind. It's this constant fear of dying, whatever it is. It's just ingrained in our DNA. It's ingrained in our it's just literal. It's just our sense of aliveness. We don't want to perish. But I think once one can realize from this point of view that you just described so eloquently, that we weren't even born per se, and we also don't die. That, for me personally speaking, is a sense of peace. Like there in whatever comes along with that death, old age, sickness, injury, pain that comes along with that, that's just another phenomena that pops up. Ultimately, death becomes just another phenomenon. That, to me, that's peace, right? Because it's
True,
happening. It's
true.
going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen to every single one of us. Yeah.
True, very true. In fact, it's seen for what it is, rather than what it should or should not be.
Mm-hmm.
Because our whole conditioning is that things should be a certain way and they should not be another way. That is human conditioning.
Yeah.
But again, when this understanding comes about, the whole fear of non-existence actually disappears, because something took birth, okay, and something is constantly changing, but I am the witness of change. I'm the constant that sees the change. I'm not the change. So the thought appears in consciousness. So the teaching, the message says that you are not the thought. You are the space, the consciousness in which the thought appears. And that is our continuous experience. Because even while awake, we experience a reality, a certain reality. When we are in dream, we experience another reality. While we are in dream, we cannot contemplate on things that are happening in our waking state. So in dream, the dream state becomes real. In waking, the waking state seems real. And in deep sleep, there is an absence of objects. So that is the void, that is the gap. And then again, we come back to the waking states. So this shows that there is a constant, but there is an underlying witness that is experiencing all the three states: the waking, the dreaming, and the deep sleep. So even my birth was there. Even something was born, something grew, and it this entity that I call myself as me, it creates ideas, it sets up expectations, it chases future ideas, past ideas, this and that. But again, it is just an entity. There is no owner here. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So suppose if I work on a project, or let's say if I work on a project and the project doesn't do well, if it's, say, it fails, I don't create any guilt or shame about it, because I completely accept that everything is just happening. I'm not doing it. So if the outcome was not what I expected, it was not in my control. Outcome happened because it had to happen like that. And I don't stick to my past stories, because there is nothing to bring back, because I'm living spontaneously, and that's the main thing. So that is what brings peace. Otherwise, the mind keeps drifting. We are always constantly thinking, and thoughts do appear. Even when you have this understanding, thoughts do appear, even expectations can arise. But there's no urgency to fulfill those expectations. It is completely accepted that, okay, if the expectations, if it happens my way, it's fine. If it doesn't happen my way, even that is accepted. So there is no urgency that things have to be this way, and the outcomes have to be what I think should happen. And that is the whole idea, because before this understanding, I had a fixed idea of life, that I will become a software engineer, then I will go up in the corporate ladder, then this will happen, then I will get married, I will have this life, and by retirement I'll be sitting blissfully and enjoying life. And now what I do is I just enjoy each and every moment, right now, right here, because there is acceptance. It is not that I'm always happy. It is not like that. I do experience sadness. I experience all the emotions, but there is no me to take ownership of those experiences. So yes, in the moment I experience everything just like everybody else, but the stories don't stick. What I'm trying to say is that pain is same for everybody, but when the understanding happens, nothing propagates as suffering in horizontal time. That drops away.
Yeah.
And that is a big relief, because most of our life, we are trying to sustain happiness. We go on this, never ending chase for happiness. So either we are buying stuff, or we are looking for new relationships, or we are trying to find a new philosophy, new thinking system that can give us happiness. But deep down, the desire is to have a peace that we experience in deep sleep. Deep desire. And as you said, you just now said that the primal fear is a fear of death. That is very true. That is actually the fear which propagates all other fears.
Yeah.
And that is what, that is why the sense of personal identification or ego always is trying to sustain itself through some way or the other way. So it is always saying that, let me acquire this knowledge, let me acquire that knowledge, let me do this, let me do that. It is trying to buy short-term happiness to make itself permanent. But what the ego does not realize is that, I give the example like this, that the destiny of a wave in the ocean is not to become bigger and compete with other waves. The destiny of the wave in ocean is to merge with the ocean and become limitless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you put out a video yesterday about the Matrix, and I like that. It's you become the Matrix. You merge with the Matrix.
Right.
In that,
Actually, there's a story behind it. There's a story behind it because, when I was in the corporate world, that was my reality. And I could not think of any other reality beyond that. Like, that was my world. And I was thinking that, oh, if this does not work out to me, my life is finished. And at that time, if somebody would have told me that, you are in a matrix, and I would have been, I would not have entertained that person. And then when I saw the futility of that lifestyle, which I was living, where I was working, 18 hours a day, 16 hours a day, and, trying to compete with other fellows in the organization, and, uh, just struggling to find time for my family, I saw the futility of it. And then I thought that, okay, now since this doesn't work out, let me try spirituality. And then I was on a path where I was just randomly reading scriptures and, text from here and there. And then I thought that this is my salvation, that now this will free me. Because now I have read scriptures and this will free me. It actually brought out another side of ego, which is a very ugly side. And even that was a shock to me, because then I saw that even in the spiritual world, a lot of the same things are happening that are happening in the material world, in the regular, our usual world. It is not much different. And this is the point of that video was that anything that the mind projects, it will create a matrix for that, because eventually the nature of mind is impermanence. So anything it creates will go away. Yeah. Anything that appears in the mind will vanish. But the being, the light of consciousness where the mind shines, that cannot go away. Because that is our continuous experience. So the reality, like if you contemplate this, you see reality cannot change. The reality is the witness of the change. If reality changes, then it cannot be real.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the problem of the mind, or the ego state of thinking, right? Is that the ego wants to live forever and creates these narratives around wanting to live forever. The story around when I get this, when I get here, when this happens, or whatever it is, insert narrative here. It creates this illusion of permanency, but that's not the reality. It's this false reality that the majority of us are living through. So it's like it's going to create inevitable suffering, because in whatever story it is that one tells themselves, it's eventually going to come to pass, no matter what it is. All of this is going to come to pass. Anika, anitya. It's eventually going to come to pass, right? I think that's the Sanskrit and Pali term for the temporary nature.
True.
Yeah, so that's Buddhism 101 right there, man. All of the story is going to come to pass. But the truth is, in how we find our way through that sense of impermanence is, like you said, you almost become the impermanent. You become the phenomena. One becomes like the flow from which that impermanence comes from, in a way, like the source, the Purusha that's behind the scenes. And in that, there is no inertia, there is no resistance to the impermanence, because there is only permanence there, right? That kind of, that state of, it's not even a state of mind, it's a state of being. It's a state, it is just the here and nowness, the isness, the current moment, literally this moment that me and you are in, that the listener is in the future. It's not actually the future. It's the current moment. It's the here and nowness. And if one can retain that here and nowness, but not even like without effort, like without attachment, it's hard to explain with words. It's hard to like convey that to somebody.
True.
That here and nowness, that's all we need. It's not even need. That's not even the right way to say it. But like that,
Yeah.
the sense of I amness, that sense of, right? Just boom, like you said, spontaneous, radical acceptance of the here and nowness,
Right.
no matter what. That is the essence, right? That's the essence of kind of what you're getting at.
True. True.
Yeah.
And this this whole topic of non-duality, it's very difficult to describe the one reality, the being, which is the ground of all experiential awareness, because the mind is always conditioned to see things in the subject object split. So you can understand good only in terms of evil, and you can understand evil in terms of good. So you understand one in terms of two, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that. I mean, it's just a feeling. It's just a feeling which is nothing but pure unconditional love. The only way I can describe it, it is not of the mind. It is a heart. It is a feeling of the heart. When I say heart, I don't mean the organ. What I'm trying to say is the dissipation of the centered contracted energy, right? It is the complete dissipation of that, and that is felt as the unconditional love, in which the cycle of life is accepted for what it is, and seen are things in totality rather than with a fragmented mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
most of us live fragmented life. That's what Jiddu Krishnamurti would say, that it's completely, we are different person in different situations, and all that is fine. That is the play of life. So we play that. But it's just that once the understanding is clear that you're not the doer of your actions, you still engage with the world, you still enjoy the pleasures of life, you still experience the pain of life, you accept your sadness, you accept your happiness, but you don't stick to anything, you don't chase after anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that drops the suffering. So you live spontaneously.
Yeah.
And spontaneous living is actually living with love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it like that. So when one lives in this unconditional love, drops the narratives, this fragmentation, would you say, even though there's a lessening of the control aspect, right? You could say that there is still spontaneous living, but yet from an outside point of view, the character on the screen changes their actions. You know what I'm getting at? So like you said, there's only one way to live in that, and that's love. And even though there is no doer, the doing changes, right? The doing becomes more loving. So would you say in this, a person's actions becomes ideally more sattvic, just naturally? Like just naturally, it just like in this flow is a natural orientation toward love, and that's our innate state of being. So one becomes putting it simply, a better person, right? To an outside point of view, one becomes just a better overall person. And this is just like not without trying, without expectation, without trying to get something out of one service, without trying to get a payment per se or whatever it is out of one service. One just simply serves the greater whole that one ultimately realizes is themselves,
True.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't even say that we become a better person. I would just say that we accept ourselves for the way we are. Because the way when the life becomes spontaneous, the action reactions happen. Sometimes it happens that a certain situation is there and we react. Okay. And uh, now usually people get confused about this aspect because they think that if a person has a spiritual understanding, they should never react. Okay. But the reaction, living spontaneously, means we are allowing even the reactions to happen. But it's just that the intensity of those reactions, okay, they don't sustain for very long, and you don't experience the spikes like that. So if it is anger, a healthy expression of anger arises, but there is no one to take ownership that that anger does not expand horizontally in time as rage, right? So
Yeah.
even happiness is experienced, the pleasure in the moment is experienced, but that pleasure does not translate in horizontal time as pride and arrogance. So that is the change. But the life is lived spontaneously. And from what I've experienced is that even the idea of becoming a better person or a good person just drops away when this message is understood, because there is nobody here to be good or to be better or to achieve anything or to attain anything, because the true source of joy or the unconditional love is discovered here. When I say here, means it is the being which is beyond the time.
Yeah.
Because mind creates the time. So being is always beyond the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the idea. So this accept, it's not that I'm trying to accept things a certain way. It's just that I accept myself for the way I am, because the conditioning that happened, the way my life circumstances happened, they were not in my control. Things happened to me and I accept them, that okay, this happened, and that acceptance itself drops the ego. You don't even have to do anything to drop the ego. The acceptance itself is enough to drop the ego. And yes, I mean, it's just a matter of time when this this message seep deeps inside the, and it becomes integrated with the being, and then one lives spontaneously. So there is never a hate for someone. I may still like or dislike people. If my neighbor is not nice, I'm not going to say that, oh, now because uh, I know that I am unconditional love, so I should get along with my neighbor. No. If my neighbor is not polite to me, I may still I would still may like to keep my distance with that person. I would still not want to interact with that person. But there is no hate in my heart for people. There is no hate in my heart for what happened in the past. I'm not carrying that story with me. That story has dropped away. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Because most of us are carrying the burden of our past, and that is a huge thing to bear, because it just keeps on breaking the body, keeps on disturbing the mind, the constant source of irritation and all that. So that kind of thing drops away. And that's how living becomes spontaneous.
Yeah, I like how you phrase the horizontal time. Like, you don't live in this horizontal time.
But yes, you were right. You're right in one thing. I would say that a natural compassion does arise for things.
Yeah. That's
because
the irony.
You accept. Yeah. Because you do accept that the difference between me and you is in appearance, but the consciousness that is powering you and me, that is the same.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what one realizes. And yeah, then it's like, what am I going to do? Not love myself? It's that's how I describe it, at least. It is ironic because it's like you said, there is no person to become a better person, but from an outside point of view, one would most likely describe you as becoming a better person. But you would say, well, I wasn't even trying to become a better person. There is no person here. But I think, you know what I'm trying to say? It's like from an outside point of view.
Yeah.
One would describe the character of Jagjot as becoming a better person with this newfound point of view. But I think the key to that is like you weren't even trying to become a so-called said better person or a good person in this. But I think that's just our natural state of being. Like we are love. We are the embodiment of love. It just happens. Love is spontaneous. It is in the moment. and it just
True.
happens. Like we don't try to become love then, or wish we were love in the past and regret it. It's like, no, we just, whatever happens, we are love, and we respond to things ideally with love in the moment. Yeah.
True.
Yeah, man.
That is the main thing.
Is God love? Would you describe love as God? Would you even just use the word God in your vocabulary?
Yes, I do. And the message says that, the message says, thy will be done. That's what Ramesh Balsekar used to say, that if the teaching of Advaita or non-duality is to be summarized in one sentence, it is thy will be done. And God, for me, is not a personal God. It's not an image. It's not an object. The God, for me, is the totality of all manifestation. So the God is the consciousness that is the source and the objectivity. That is the source, or say the substance of everything. So even Nisargadatta Maharaj would say that the reality lies in the objectivity. So you don't see God as apart from the world. What you see is that you see God as the world. That's what the message is. And when you see God as the world, you actually see God as consciousness in all beings. That is the thing. So yes, and the change that brings is in relationship, because once I see that things are only different in appearances, but the consciousness powering each human being, all beings in fact, is the same, then all the hate, jealousy, malice, resentment, that drops away. Yes, in the moment I may have my disagreements, in the moment I may even have my emotional reactions, but nothing gets forward in horizontal time. So that's the only difference. So God, the idea of God is not an all-powerful separate entity in manifestation. The God is the source, the pure potential, which actually manifests as the consciousness, which animates the living reality.
Well said.
So of course that is unconditional love. That is felt as the unconditional love. So yes, I would agree with you. Yes, I would say that God is unconditional love, if it is seen in totality.
Yeah. That's a tough one to swallow, though, right? Think about this. Like, how one would say the darkness of the world, the wars that we have, pestilence, starvation. How is that God as well?
Yeah, it is true.
I have trouble describing that, but that is still God. That is still God, and it's hard to say. It's hard to convince one of that. I don't even think I would even try to convince one that is God, but it's true. Like all phenomena is just, and it's a play of God's love, and it's hard to explain.
Yes, it is wholeness.
It's wholeness.
And it's the problem usually is that we are viewing the world from a very fragmented mind. And in most of the time, we are assuming that a situation is bad because we are in a different situation. I'll just give an example. I was talking to a group of people. They were from Sweden, I believe. Yeah. So some of them were complaining. They were saying that, that things are not going good for us, and, there's not much to do here. And, there were some personal issues they had. So I explained them the message, and we had a long discussion with them, but still they were not convinced. So I told them that the last thing what I can do is I can invite you to my home in Delhi. You come over here, come to Delhi. I'll take you walk with me nearby in a market where after every 2 seconds, somebody will blow a horn from behind, right? And you see how crowded that market is. I said, stay with me for 5 days, 6 days, right? And you will forget all your problems which you're facing there in Sweden. All of a sudden, then that won't be a problem. And it's generally that our perception is when we see things in totality, it's completely a different picture. Then the wholeness, wholeness behind phenomenality is experienced. It is seen. But sitting here, we feel that the world is dark, and of course, there's a lot of media machinery which is running behind, which is sensationalizing everything, and over, what is the word you use, over hyping things, and overstating.
Sensationalizing.
Yeah, over sensationalism is so that sort of becomes our paradigm, that becomes our living reality. So I tell people that if you think that situation is bad, just go to other countries and see what the situation is like that. And Gary, I'll tell you, I have seen abject poverty in this country, in my country, like literally where people die of hunger. And I have been with those people, and I tell you, some of those people only, they're able to arrange only one meal in a day, but they are the happiest people on the face of this planet. I mean, and I tell you, they live spontaneously. Yes, they have their drinks, they criticize the government, okay, but they listen to music and they're ecstatic, completely ecstatic. And I can show this to you. If you come here, I can take you to my village where actually things like that happen. Those people are living in the moment. In fact, they don't need any teaching or any message, because they already are living in that situation. But problem with us is we are just living in our minds.
Yeah.
And our mind is just creating reality. That is the nature of mind. Either it will create one reality, or it will just create another reality. And it is all based on fear. As you said, that the fear of death is the primal fear. It is all, the ego is so scared of death that it just wants to do each and everything it can do to sustain itself. So it tries all the tricks in the book. So all this complaining about things not going, yes, I do agree that there are problems. I won't say that everything is okay, but the problems are seen for what they are. It is not that it is, except Ramesh Balsekar would say this beautiful line. He would say that a sage, when he says a sage, he means a man of understanding, who has completely embodied this concept of non-doership. A sage completely accepts that duality is the polaric opposites of pain and pleasure, good and evil. There will never be a time when there will be only good and no evil, and vice versa. So it is seen for what it is accepted. But saying that, it does not mean that I don't take action. I still may have a certain view of the world. If I see poverty somewhere, I still would offer help out of compassion. I would still do it. But whether my offering help to that person or to that group of people or to some organization, will that change them, or will that bring about a transformation? That is not in my control, because that is all happening because of God's will, as they say. Or if in modern day, if you don't like to say God will, we can say cosmic will. That's the whole idea.
Interesting. Yeah, well put. Yeah. God's will. Do you see?
In fact,
go ahead. Sorry.
In fact, I find even the word non-duality and words like enlightenment a bit strange, because as I mentioned earlier, that to one we are using two to describe one. So we are actually using no duality to describe oneness.
Yeah,
and
it makes no sense.
There is this, intellectually it cannot be understood, this whole thing. And from what I've seen, most people that I've spoken to, we are so used to intellectual understanding. So we feel that, by reading books or by getting it intellectually, we'll have that, space of expansion and the love will blossom. But it is exactly the opposite. If you see, only silence can bring about this realization. The individual is actually not in any control. since I'm not the doer of my actions, I'm not also in charge of my enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, non-dual awakening. I'm not in charge of that. That is all happening. The experience that happened to me, which I mentioned earlier, I did not do anything. It just happened abruptly. And, to be honest, I was a hardcore materialistic guy. I had no inclination towards spirituality, but that moment triggered something, and the seeking started. And then I got interested in the subject, and then it kept on and on. And I was a software developer. I was so used to working on the laptop and writing code all the time. And I think it's been now more than 5-6 years. I've not even touched code.
Wow.
So it was a great change. And the best thing is in terms of relationships, because when I was working, I could not spend time with my kids. They were very small that time. But now it's a ritual for me to, that every evening 2 to 3 hours are dedicated to my children, and I don't compromise on that time. I don't go out for movies. I don't go out for. I am usually a very introverted person. I normally also don't go out for these things. But that time, 2 hours time, that is my sacred time with my family in the evening. So no phones, no gadgets, nothing. It's the old-fashioned storytelling, and kids' jokes and all those things, reading books, and solving puzzles. So we disconnect from the technology and we just sit there. And what I see is that in children, it's not that they tell you that, okay, they want to play with you and this. It's just that they want to spend time. They just want the presence of the parent, and which I was not able to give. In fact, even I could not give time to my mother. I could not spend too much time with my dad also, because he passed away in 2014. At that time, I was super busy with my job, so I hardly had any time. And he passed away in 2014. And after that, there was a lot of this thing, regret that I could have spent more time. But again, now in the light of teaching, when I see that, I see it as something which was destined to happen, and it happened. And whatever time I spent with him was good time, quality time. So that sweet memory is there. And now I'm, enjoying with my kids, my family. Yes, I'm earning much less than what I used to earn in my job. It is, in fact, there is a car downstairs which I've not driven for about 2 months now.
Oh.
And I like to walk and, explore places. So I don't other than this, other than these gadgets to for meeting and all, I don't buy too much stuff for myself. I'm quite happy with bare essentials, whatever I have. And so, the identification with things, external things, is actually it gets there's a sense of dispassion with external things, because once the beauty is realized from the inside, the unconditional love, once you see it, you cannot unsee it then.
Exactly. Yeah.
It penetrates into your being, and it is life transforming.
Yeah. Would you say a great simplification comes from that?
It is exactly. That is the right word. That is, in fact, that is the most accurate word to describe it. Yeah. Ramesh would say the same thing. He would say that there is nothing, there's nothing more in the understanding other than that the life gets simplified. And simplification is peace by nature. A simplified life is a peaceful life. It is not, it may not be an easy life, but it is definitely a peaceful life.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Well said. Yeah. I mean, that's like the example that monks and sadhus and swamis portray to us. It's like a great simplification. They're an extreme example, but I think we can all take that example of greatly simplifying our life to reside as that loving awareness that we all are, without, like, we overcomplicate it. It seems that human beings naturally overcomplicate this human experience. We do it to ourselves. We cause our own suffering, but really it is simple. Doesn't mean it's necessarily easy to be able to see that at first, but one can come to find that it is quite simple to be a human being, to be alive.
Very true. Very true. I think that's the best way to describe this. It is simplification. Simplification is peace. And that happens in spontaneous living.
Yeah, just happens. Just becomes simple.
Yeah, it just happens. There's no doer, but things do happen. Things happen. There's no doer.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing that you said from that was being more grateful in the moment with the people that you love. Because that in today's world, we can see how that is we're kind of like living on the complete opposite paradigm of that, with everybody on technology and, people hanging out with each other and being on social media. And I sound like an old man saying that, but it's true. It's true, man. Like we're not like, there's something special, right, about being with somebody and really just being with them, not wanting to be anywhere else, not being in the future or the past, and simply experiencing the moment with somebody, maybe on a podcast, and simply just like being here and now with somebody, experiencing somebody else's mind, and just this, there's something so precious and special about that. And I think that's one of the greatest things that you described about this whole non-dual perspective, quote unquote. It's just literally being not only in the here and moment as yourself in your body here and now experiencing, but also experiencing that with another human being. There's something special about that. And when two people or two or more people are on that wavelength and really, really present, that creates a more beautiful moment. And that's what it's all about, man. It's just it's beautiful. Yeah.
True. Yeah, and because even Jiddu Krishnamurti and all Advaita teachers, they would say life is relationship and action. What is there more to life? It is just relationship and action, and relationship not just with human beings, but with everything around. Even relationship with your thoughts. What kind of relationship do we have with our thoughts? So I think you touched upon this very beautifully, that giving someone your undivided attention, your presence, is the greatest gift you can give to another human being.
Yeah.
And I think I would say that I'm grateful to you that you're sitting here and you're giving me your undivided attention, because it is a rarity these days.
It really is.
Because people, when you go out with people, all you see is everybody's so hooked onto devices that they don't relish what the moment has to offer. Of course, it is accepted that even that is happening because of the cosmic law, and that is also part of the wholeness. So it is also part of the divine love. So we don't blame people for that. We don't say that, no, they should be like this, they should not be like this. No, it is accepted. But yes, you truly lose out on the joy of the moment, the precious moments we have with each other, and they matter so much. Giving someone the grace of your presence, undivided attention, total attention. Even sometimes, from what I've seen, that I sometimes get people, who like to speak to me about their problems and issues. And I've heard many times they say that, so while the talking is happening, I don't say anything. I'm just quiet. I'll quietly listen to them. And they thank me afterwards, saying that, thank you for listening, because actually we didn't want an answer. We just wanted that somebody listened to us. And that is so beautiful.
It is.
Because, trying to we are always in a hurry to be the saviors of others, right? We are always in a hurry to give them a solution. No, you should do this. You should not do that. And usually we do that without knowing anything about the person, what their background is, what their conditioning is, what they've been through in life. We just assume, right, that if they're feeling a certain way, this should be the response. Of course, if someone asks for an advice and answer, then I can give the answer. But if somebody is just expressing themselves then what is the greatest gift you can give them other than the gift of your presence?
Amen to that. Yeah. Seriously. It's simple.
It's very simple. It is very, very simple. And I think simplicity brings relief. It is a major relief.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the need to chase any permanent state or enlightenment or to learn Sanskrit, to read scriptures, even that goes away because eventually everything is pointing in the same direction. Everything is taking us to the wholeness, to God.
Yep. Yeah.
And in searching for God, we actually miss out on God. The moment we start searching, we create a separation.
Yeah.
And this separation itself is suffering.
Would you say that it's almost needed to have that search at first? Maybe not with everybody, but with yourself maybe, and myself speaking personally, it almost seems like you need that search to realize that that search was futile. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can say that you need that search, but from personal experience, I've seen that some sort of life events, unpleasant life events do happen, which perpetuate a person in that direction. So the seeking does happen.
Yeah, like you were isolated for 4 years. I had my own journey as well, but then I come to realize, and you come to realize, like, what was I looking for the whole time? Well, I didn't, you probably realize now that you didn't have to isolate yourself for 4 years, but in a way you did. There is no changing what happened, but like in a way you needed to do that to realize that that was futile in the end. It's weirdly ironic.
True. In fact, I remember that at some point I was so frustrated that the words I used was that I still remember. Again, I was just outside my room upstairs, and I said, to hell with all this, to hell with non-duality. I don't want it. And I just went about my usual work. I just forgot about it. And a couple of days after that, I just realized that my mind was absolutely silent. And there was a sense of calm, there was a sense of peace. And it was quite similar to the peace which I had experienced many years back. And now that had become a permanent feature, that had become my living reality. So, yes, things would still arise in the moment, but nothing was propagating in horizontal time as suffering. And that was such a huge relief for me. And that was a time when, need to attain any state or, do long hours in meditation, that went away. So I still do meditation, but now there's a sense of ease to it. It is not to attain anything. It is not with the expectation to quiet the mind that I sit in meditation. I just act spontaneously. Like when I feel like sitting, I just sit for meditation, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's it. And that's it. So it's all spontaneous. It's not to achieve something, not because if the meditation is done with that base, with the subject which is trying to quieten the mind, then it becomes like a contest sort of a thing. Not a contest, like how would you say, a comparison sort of a thing. That yesterday I had a more peaceful day in meditation. Now today my mind is turbulent. Why is this happening? I'm not doing it correctly. All those things just start disappearing. So it doesn't matter now. Okay, some days I sit in meditation, doesn't happen. Thoughts are too troubling. Okay, it's accepted. And once it is accepted, something beautiful happens. When there is no resistance, the witnessing begins to happen. What I mean by witnessing is that there is no individual who takes ownership of the thoughts. It is completely accepted that these are the thoughts which are rising in consciousness. And in that moment, the thinking is cut off. It is so beautiful. The thinking is cut off. And all that remains then is peace.
Yeah. All that remains is peace.
All that remains is peace. And a very simple life.
Yeah.
I still have challenges. Uh, this pandemic, uh, this pandemic was actually a very simple, easy time for me because, before this, I was already in isolation. So when they announced lockdown on India, it was nothing new for me. I would like,
Yeah.
for other people, it was quite traumatic because we were not used to that kind of life. But I was already at home. So for me, it was just a regular thing. But
Mm-hmm.
again, the challenges still happened. I mean, I had a financial setback, and the situation was so bad that I could not pay my children's school fee. And I told my wife that I cannot do this. I cannot pay the school fee. So we have to, for the time being, we cannot send children to school. And I said, I'll teach them myself. And for 6 months, I taught myself. And at that time, a lot of people were there who were saying, who were saying that this is not a good decision and you should have thought about it or you should have taken a loan or something like that. But I said, no, don't worry about it. And after a few months, the situation improved and things worked out. And then I could get them back in the school. And it just didn't happen. Now, the people who were at that time criticizing the decision, again, there was no hate towards them. There was no, negative energy towards them because it was accepted that it was a difficult time for them as well. So they were operating out of their conditioning. And I was operating out of my own conditioning. And in that pandemic time, I even lost my brother. I lost my grandfather.
Oh.
And in a very difficult situation where my grandfather was quite old and everybody was infected in the house. So he was isolated and he could not even get up. And I could not see my dad because even I was down with the infection. So even I could not meet him. I mean, this is the man who taught me mathematics, and he was a professor of mathematics, and had very good memories with him. But I could not see him in the end. But it's okay; it's accepted that okay, even that is the part of unconditional love. Yeah, I know it's very difficult to accept that. Even I see my father passing away. Never in the negative incident because of course there was a lot of grief when my dad passed away, and I lot of grief, I expressed a lot of grief, but there was never this feeling that why did you go away, why did you leave me. It is completely accepted that that had to happen because nobody has any control over the cosmic will. So thy will be done. And now that he's gone, I still feel his essence, and it is much closer to me than when he was alive, than when he was with me. I feel him like being much closer to me now.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I cannot express that as this thing, but I mean it's a very loving, soft feeling.
I know what you mean. Because what your father truly was or is was not the phenomena as you see him as you're in the body. It's like it's a deeper sense.
Yeah.
Like his true identity is a deeper sense that goes beyond birth. It goes beyond death. And you recognize that.
Yes.
And that's why how you can convey it that he is closer than ever, because it doesn't even matter that he died. I know that sounds weird to say. That sounds really weird to say. But it doesn't you know what I'm saying. It's like it doesn't matter that he died, and he's still what he is truly deep down is still with us to this day.
True.
Right?
True.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Wow, man. Radical acceptance. This is a good one. And it's true, man, because this is going to happen. We're going to have loved ones that are going to die. We're going to die. Stuff's going to happen in our life. So it's just like, see that as a phenomena, as a changing, as a passing by of life. And I guess it becomes easier to bear, right? It becomes easier to bear the suffering, to see that it's just another temporary phenomenon in the movie of life. And it's all God's will at the end of the day. There's nothing we can do about it. So you can either get with the program, go with it, or you can resist.
True.
Surrender, man. Surrender.
True. I
Huh.
mean, look at everything. If you just observe things around you, we are not in charge of anything. We're not in
Mm-hmm.
charge of our breathing, of our heartbeat, of our homeostasis. Everything is happening. And even if you see it scientifically also, I mean, uh, if you go at the subatomic level, suppose if magically we are shrunk to that level, there would be no, if we are in the same room, nobody would be able to tell who's Gary, who's Jagjot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So that is also a reality. But
Yeah.
this seems real because it is happening here right now. So it feels real because the consciousness is right now this. But when the consciousness changes to dream, in the dream is real. But reality cannot change. So being or consciousness is the substratum of all realities. That is what the message is. And once it is seen, recognized for what it is, that is when the peace of mind happens in daily living as spontaneous living. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I would say.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can probably wrap this thing up at that point. Do you have any last
Yeah.
words other
Sure.
than that, or do you want to keep it at that?
I think we're good.
Okay, awesome.
This is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate your time. Appreciate your wisdom. This was definitely an awesome conversation. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say.
Absolutely.
I wish you all the best for the
Thank you so
future.
much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Gary. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you all the best.
Same to you. Keep doing your thing. And yeah, thy will be done.
Thy will be done.
Thanks, man.